Hi, I'm Nathalie Espinosa, and this is our climate change web quest video. Enjoy!
Hi, my name is Karina. My role is climate scientist. The kind of training and education needed to become a climate scientist or a bachelor degree in climatology or related fields such as meteorology or atmospheric science. For research and academic positions, a master's or a PhD is needed. Climate scientists investigate the structure and dynamics of Earth's climate system. It seeks to understand how global, regional, and local climate are maintained, as well as the process by which they change over time. Scientists have taken measurements of carbon dioxide levels since the late 1950s. They've also gathered in-depth records of CO2 levels from sources like ice core studies. Carbon dioxide levels are higher than any point in the last 800,000 years. The cars we drive, the fuel we burn for electricity and warmth, the food we eat or waste, and the forests we clear are the cause. Climate models successfully forecast these temperature increases as well as other impacts like sea level rise and ocean acidification. The models now suggest that we need immediate dramatic reductions in our CO2 to avoid catastrophic impacts, and that time is running out. Data is data that paleoclimatologists gather from natural recorders of climate variability. Example like tree rings, ice cores, fossil pollen, ocean sediments, coral, and historical data. Scientists compare today's climate with that of the distant past using proxy data from tree rings, ice cores, and other indicators. These data collections offer indirect evidence of temperature and other climate properties from before instrumental measurements became available. Scientists can go back 2,000 years and still have confidence in the climate record. Carbon dioxide concentration goes up, temperature goes up. When the carbon dioxide concentration goes down, temperature goes down. The level of CO2 in the atmosphere has risen from around 317 parts per million in 1958 to 400 parts per million today. The global average atmospheric carbon dioxide in 2019 was 409.8 parts per million, with a range of uncertainty plus or minus 0.1 parts per million. Carbon dioxide levels today are higher than at any point in the past 800,000 years. The models have told us that climate change will only worsen and Earth will continue to become warmer. Some of the factors that cause different models to produce different projections are the different equations climate scientists bring up to predict, as well as the different modeling groups or devices used to predict them.
Hello, my name is Melissa and I'm the policy analyst. The education of a policy analyst is that they must hold a master's degree, with some even getting a PhD. To do this, they must earn a bachelor's degree first, and normally in an area that is relative to statistics, public policy, public administration, or politics, as well as raising public consciousness of various topics. They work to impact political and social activities. This includes studies, review of existing laws, assessment of the impacts of proposed legislation, and reporting the results. The Safe Soils Initiative, the Alternative Manure Management Program, the Productive Agricultural Lands Conservation Program, and the State Water Quality and Enhancement Program, all aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions, have been adopted by California. Some of the initiatives in the area that are USDA are Biorefinery Renewable Chemical and Bio-Based Product Manufacturing Assistance Program that gives loans and that guarantees are provided for the production, construction, and upgrading of commercial biofurnaceries. And this is in Miami-Dade County, which is like the green power policy. And this purchases at least 5% of green power or renewable energy that certifies from a green power generation that's sourced in Florida. Some of the federal policies and initiatives that have been proposed to reduce fossil fuel consumption would be President Obama's 2013 State of the Union address, and he claimed that by slowing down economic growth and energy production, the introduction of the SAGITR, which is like federal budget costs, will be devastating. He said that the United States will eventually be prepared to generate more oil and double the productivity of cars and the amount of domestic output of renewable energy, and the expanded renewable production consumption and increased efficiency policies. federal initiatives are on the bigger scale, so state policies will promote people in the community to do their own part in helping out. Some of the major international policies efforts that are aimed at global warming issues are the 108 countries that have associated with the Copenhagen Accord, which was hammered out by 28 of the world's key countries that represent over 80% of the world's global warming pollution, and some of the most vulnerable to these impacts of climate change. Additionally, key countries will begin to coordinate efforts to address deforestation emissions, and these efforts differ because they are out of the average person's control and all up to the government and other high powers to take over.
Hi again. I want to speak on my role, which is the economist, with the training required and what they do on a daily basis. So in order to become economist, the kind of training or education needed is to acquire a master's degree or PhD. A PhD requires several years of study after earning a bachelor's degree, including completion of detailed research in a specialty field. So with what economists do on a daily basis is study economic and statistical data in an area of specialization such as finance, labor, or agriculture. They conduct research on economic issues and disseminate research findings through technical reports or scientific articles and journals. So when it comes to climate change costs, it has contributed to extreme weather events that have caused at least $100 billion in damages. By 2050, cumulative damages from climate change will reach almost $8 trillion. With that amount of money being used, that has impoverished almost 3% of gross world product and the poorest regions by more of their gross domestic product. Specific parts of the world that will be mostly affected is the Arctic, Africa, small islands, and the Asian megadeltas. So some of the options being proposed for businesses to try to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions is starting a workplace recycling program, switching to zero-emission company cars, promoting transportation alternatives, communicating with suppliers to work towards more sustainable practices, getting GHG emissions verified, and even installing high-tech options to save resources. How different countries are trying to lessen the negative economic impacts associated with reducing greenhouse gas emissions on a national level is by focusing on curbing deforestation and boosting renewable energy sources. In fact, several nations are experimenting with cap-and-trade plans, which basically means that regulators are setting mandatory limits on industrial emissions, but companies that exceed those caps can buy permits to emit from companies that have allowances to spare. While developing nations have been reluctant to accept binding emission targets, asking those richer nations to take action first, many are undertaking efforts that have significantly reduced the growth of their own greenhouse gas emissions. In most cases, climate mitigation is not the goal, but rather an outgrowth of efforts driven by economic, security, or local environmental concerns. In some cases, it's not clear that countries are doing much to meet their standard climate goals. What is clear is that the pledges currently on the table aren't legally binding, and that they fall short of what would be required to stabilize the planet's atmosphere. So if someone chooses to calculate their own carbon footprint, they may need to divide their home's energy consumption by the number of occupants. They may also have to bring in the CO2 emissions associated with business travel. Some of the economic choices an individual can make to reduce their own carbon footprint is to unplug devices, eat locally and organic, drive less, plant a garden, line dry clothing, and even conserve water. Carbon offset schemes allow companies to invest in environmental projects around the world in order to balance out their own carbon footprints. This might involve relying on clean energy technologies or purchasing and ripping of carbon credits from an emissions trading scheme.
Hello, my name is Lan and I'm the energy expert. As an energy expert, I analyze, interpret, and create graphs of data on energy. And I also recommend ways to save up on energy through this analysis. We are spending too much energy burning fossil fuels and releasing the greenhouse gases into the air. Transportation is one of the main contributors to burning fossil fuels. There are many alternatives to this, such as diesel vehicles or hybrid and plug-in vehicles, and etc. For instance, everyone knows about the Tesla, which is a hybrid and plug-in vehicle that runs on electricity and recharges every night. Reducing fossil fuel consumption is very hard, I understand. But there are many alternatives to that, such as wave energy, biofuels, natural gases, and etc.
My name is Juliett. My role is urban planner. In order to become an urban planner, a master's degree from a planning program or an urban planning program is needed, and they create programs or ideas to help the community. A technology they use to make buildings is the GIS technology that better helps to understand the current needs of the city. There are new solar homes that make houses more energy efficient as well as high efficient heating. An urban heat island effect is like a city area that is warmer than the surrounding area around it because of human activities. Green rooftops reduce this effect by reducing the heat from the air and acting as an insulator.
My name is Phil, and I'll be your interviewer. Okay, so let's start our interview. Is the Earth climate warming? If so, what are the causes and how have human activities contributed to this warming? Yes, we believe that the Earth's climate is warming up. The causes are from more forest fires and our release of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide into the air. Human activities that have contributed to this warming are transportation. We burn fossil fuels when we drive, and all of those greenhouse gases goes into the atmosphere and warms up our environment. How confident are scientists about climate change? Scientists are extremely sure about the Earth's climate warming up. What kind of information is still needed to bolster understanding of global warming? The information that is still needed to bolster understanding of global warming is international assistance and international understanding. Say, if all nations were to understand the seriousness of the issue of global warming and climate change, we would all be able to come together to create an earth-friendly environment and a healthier environment as well. What choices do humans have for responding to global climate change? And how will countries from different parts of the world need to react differently to this issue?
Policy recommendations that we have for the United Nations members are try to maintain the limited use of private transportation and try to use more of public transportation, in order to lower the amount of carbon dioxide that is being left out into the atmosphere. This helps maintain the high standards of citizens that are living in the country and also helps to address the health and social problems that are related to it. Countries from different parts of the world need to respond differently by depending how severe their health or climate issues really are. Advanced energy efficiency, putting efficient financing for energy should establish rules for shareholders as well as successfully achieve universal energy success for all the citizens that are living in the country.
Here's a short little animation on what the effect of climate change has. What will you do?
We need your help to protect this earth. Will you do what you can to help? If you are not convinced, pay attention to this animation. Ah, what a beautiful ocean. Meet our sea turtle buddy, Franklin. Gee, I'm hungry. Is that a yummy piece of kelp I see? Yum, 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 yum. That was delicious. Is there any more? We know how this ends. Every year, there have been 1,000 documented deaths of sea turtles from plastic alone. And we can all change that. So, will you do what you can to help?